Hi, we've decided to shoot this video for the Triax 114 to show people how to upgrade the firmware on it, and it's trying to resolve one specific problem, and that is the problem that continuously extra channels come onto their box and the terrestrial channels, and when they delete them they keep popping back up. Okay, so we've waited for ages for either Triax or for Servue to come to a fix for this, but it hasn't happened in terms of with our standard firmware. So we've just gone for a version that we had but hadn't used for the last year or that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is two things. I'm just going to rotate around this box, and I have a USB key here, and on this USB key I have two things. I have the channel list, which I've saved off our existing box, and I have the new firmware as well. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come along here, and I'm just going to insert the USB key in here. Watch this. Sorry. And what I'm going to do is just going to rotate the box around here now. So we're just going to come along here, and when I turn on the box after wiping it and resetting it, this is how it comes up. And what I'm going to do at this point is I'm just going to hit the exit button, and I'll hit the menu button. It's here. And I'll just scroll down as far as information and the version. And what we see here is we'll just see the hardware version, we'll see the software version, the firmware version, and also just see the build date here, and it was in the 13th of July 2012. Okay, and the model number, etc. Okay, and that's for important because we'll reference this after we change this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hit the exit button. I'll just go back into menu, and I'm going to come down as far as settings. I come over here, and I'm just going to do upgrade. Sorry. And upgrade USB. And we'll go in here, which is our main drive, and I'm going to come back down here as far as the firmware, and we just have a date on it, the 11th of November 2014. It's just when we put it up on our website, and I just click OK here. So what I'm going to do now is, you can see there's a total of 4 steps on this. The first step is we have to read the data. Step number 2 is we have to erase the data, then we update the data, and then we restart the machine. The longest step of it is the erase the flash, okay? And erasing the flash, this probably is going to take in the region of 4 to 5 minutes. And this is why, after I go through a few things here, we're probably just going to cut and either come back as a second video or splice this into this video. I'm not quite sure how we'll handle it yet. But basically what it's doing now is it's just putting the new firmware on. Now, a real word of caution when it comes to this point of it is, if you actually come along and you plugged out the box at this point and powered it off, you would not be able to recover that box. And the reason is that you'd have partially overwritten the last firmware, and you wouldn't have successfully put on the new one, and the box would then be effectively with no firmware. So as long as you don't power it off or have a power outage when you're doing it, this will work absolutely fine. It's pretty straightforward. So what are the steps that we're going to go through? Step 1 is to come along and put on the new firmware. Step 2 is, after the box is rebooted and started again, what we will do is we will go in and turn LCN off. And that's another issue that comes with these boxes. Of all the products that I've seen on the website, the one that's probably been the most over-engineered is the Triax combo box, because they're trying to integrate a lot of extra features. LCN was supposed to make life easier by automatically updating your channel list if extra channels come along, but it's been absolutely sabotaged by the fact that a huge number of additional free channels, test channels have been broadcast by Servue as they get ready to launch additional muxes, etc. And also it had the effect of dividing up your channel list, putting the Servues down on the low channels and starting the satellite channels up at channel 250. And people didn't want a gap of 240 channels between them, so that just didn't work well. So after much to and fro and trying to get it to work the way it had been planned, we just made a decision on all the boxes that we were pre-programming here that we turn LCN off. So now that I've recapped on that, so the first step is upgrade the firmware. The next thing is turn LCN off, and then you can reload an existing channel list, which is what I'm going to do in this video. Or what you could do alternatively on this particular one is you could actually come along and you could just do a scan and add in the extra channels. Because this is actually going quite well here, we're up to 70%. What I think I'll do is I'll just keep going, and I'll just hang in there for maybe a little piece of blank airtime on it, okay? So turning off the LCN, that'll be a good feature on it. It worked pretty well regardless in terms of it'll stop the extra channels being forced on, but people will want the channels in the right, in a sort of a nice close order where the UK channels exactly followed the Irish ones on the list. So just work through here, we're at about 70, almost 80% at this point. So overall, we'll say, despite the sort of drawbacks on this, with the new firmware on it, I would still recommend the Triax 114 to a lot of people, simply because it has a digital teletext on it, and the user interface on it's good. And one thing that's universally has been true of Triax boxes is the build quality of them has always been good, in terms of like, they always put good quality components in, the engineering support on it's good afterwards, things like that. So, so it's still probably the best Servview approved combo box in the market, but it's just unfortunate that it's had some issues like this where we've had to change the firmware. Just a matter of interest for anybody who's buying a Triax 114 off, it's pre-programmed. We're actually putting the new firmware on automatically, so they won't have to go through this process. So we're working through, we're getting very close, and at that, it won't really go into the restart system at all, it'll just completely reboot at that point. That's what it means by restart the system. So it's there. That's it. So now it's just rebooting at that point. It'll probably take about another 20-30 seconds to come back up. It'll still have no channels on it, because remember, we've just changed the firmware, nothing else. So what I might do at the very start here is I'll just come along here, and what I'll do is I'll just show you the information button, and we'll just see what's changed in terms of the firmware or the hardware or etc. on it, okay? Just wait for this to turn back on. Just another second. So it's just booting up now. We have the picture here again. So I'm just going to hit the exit button here again, and I'll just go into the menu. So I'll just move down through here, and what we'll notice here on the information button is, if we look at the version now, we'll see that the actual hardware, software and firmware are unchanged, but the build date now has changed to the 18th of January 2013. So you can see this firmware was actually created quite a long time ago, but it just hadn't been used, but it was capable of fixing this latest problem that we've seen. So what we do then is I'm just going to exit out of there. So I'll just go back in, and I'll just hit the menu button again. And if we see here, we see the LCN option. So there's a password of 4 zeros to enter here. So we'll come down along here. But you can see by default that's on. And we'll just move it up to, to off. Yep. So that's it, off. And I'll just exit out that point, and I'll just go back into menu again, so we can see the LCN off. So what I could do at this point, if I wanted to, is I could do a scan of the channels, but much easier for me again is just to come along, take the channel list that I have on our actual lineup here. So what I can do here is I can just go into back where I was previously here, which was just the upgrade here. So I'll just do the upgrade here. And this time what I'll do is I'll actually be choosing the channel list that we have once again available on our website. So here, I come down here, and this is the channel list that we produced. I think this one, July of 2014. And what it's doing here, it's going through the same process. So it looks like it's doing the same thing, but you'll see the process here is much, much quicker. Flick straight through. And what it'll be doing here now is it'll just be putting all the UK channels on. On our pre-programmed channel list, we don't put on the Irish channels, simply because the satellite channels are universal. They're coming off a single satellite, Eutelsat 28 degrees, while we'll say with the Irish channels, they'll be coming off your local transmitter or sub-transmitter. So we can't program that on a global level, simply because we don't know what frequency you'll be using for your particular channels, because it depends on your location in Ireland. So we're just working through here quickly. Almost at the end of this now, and the box will turn off again. It'll reboot in a few moments time, and when it comes back up, it'll just come back up with the UK channels on it. we can probably actually kill the video at that point. So just to recap on what we've done here, we've done 3 steps. The first thing here is we've come along, we've put on the new firmware. The next thing is when it's rebooted, we've come along and we've put on, turned off LCN so we can have the UK and the Irish channels side by side. And then the final thing, what we've done is we just took a list of channels. You could use your own channel list and save it before you upgrade the firmware, or you can take our one directly off the TV Trade website, and we just upgraded it there so there'll be a list of channels on it. So that's it anyway, an overview of how to upgrade the firmware on your Triax 114.